Hello everyone, and today we're going to take a look at Goldeneye's successor, Perfect Dark, which was released in 2000 for the Nintendo 64. It was developed by Rare again and published by Nintendo. Now, Perfect Dark was Goldeneye's successor, as Rare and Nintendo no longer held the Bond license. It had found its way into the hands of EA at the time, and there was no direct sequel to Goldeneye that could be made, so there couldn't be an official Bond game. So Rare created a new intellectual property which does share a lot of similarities with Goldeneye, but it does have the freedom to tell its own story and be its own thing. It was a kind of cyberpunk sci-fi type shooter. It did feature a female protagonist in Joanna Dark, so let's get to this video then. Right, so once again, if you own the original cartridge for the Nintendo 64, you can pop it in. However, with Perfect Dark, you do need the 4MB expansion cart as well in order to play it. I think you could only play the multiplayer on the original N64 without the expansion cart, but you did need the expansion cart to play the single player. If you want to play Perfect Dark on a modern console, then the good news is that you can, as it was released on Xbox Live Arcade in 2010. So if you own an Xbox 360, you can buy it on the Xbox Store. You just download it and play. Simple as that. Perfect Dark is also backwards compatible, so you can play it on your Xbox One. It can be purchased on the Xbox Store on Xbox One as well, but if you own the Xbox 360 version, you can just download it again on your Xbox One. It will be in the ready to install section in your Xbox One game library. If you do own it and you're on the same Xbox Live account, it will be there. You can also pick up the Rare Replay collection for Xbox One. Perfect Dark is on there. Okay, the Xbox version of Perfect Dark does have a lot of new features, HD textures, it does run at 60 FPS, and it does feature new character models and new lighting also. The Xbox One version is a pretty decent version actually, it's a good update. They've not tinkered with it a huge amount. The new character models are interesting. Yes, they're all Microsoft employees, and yes, you can slap Peter Molyneux around. That's for Fable 3, really, that's for Fable 3, Peter. You know, but it's still a pretty good version. I mean, the controls have only seen a minor update though. So, I mean, it is an improvement over the Nintendo 64 controls, but they are still dated when it comes to sort of modern shooters. So, can you play it on the PC then? Well, yes you can. So in the last video, in our Goldeneye video, we talked about the 1964 emulator, which also works with Perfect Dark. It is called the Goldeneye Perfect Dark build. You can have the same 1080p 60 FPS output, also with mouse and keyboard support, so it's pretty much the same as Goldeneye on the emulator. The only issue is certain gadgets like the Cam Spy doesn't work with the mouse. You have to use the I think you just use the arrow keys on the keyboard to use the Cam Spy. Use the WASD and the arrow keys to move that around. For some reason, the mouse support wasn't emulated. It obviously is a different control scheme. So the emulated version is a solid experience, okay? The updated controls make it slightly more playable than the Xbox version. You don't get a lot of the Xbox features like the upgraded character models and the updated lighting effects as well. You do get the originals there, so making it kind of an experience that has advantages and disadvantages over the Xbox version, but it's still a pretty solid experience all in all. Well, if you want to buy the original Nintendo 64 version, the good news is that it is available for a bit less than Goldeneye. The Xbox Live re-release means that you can get it on the modern console, so therefore original copies are worth a little bit less as it's because of the digital release. An unboxed copy you're looking at, in the UK you're looking at between sort of £5 and £15. A boxed copy expect to pay between sort of £10 and £20. I did see a copy in my local CEX. They had Goldeneye and Perfect Dark, a boxed copy of Perfect Dark. £12. Of course, they put a sticker on the box, meaning that you're probably going to damage the box when you take the sticker off. Therefore, it's pretty much worthless. Why do these retro gaming stores always put fucking stickers on their box? It annoys me. Perfect Dark didn't sell as well as Goldeneye, so you would think it would be worth a bit more, but it is slightly less desirable. I mean, than Goldeneye. Obviously, digital re-release, so you'd pay a bit less for the copy. The other thing about it is, it does require the 4 megabytes of VRAM expansion pack, so you need an N64 and the expansion pack. So it is a little bit more difficult to play because if you do need that expansion pack, and those expansion packs are quite expensive nowadays. You can still find them in places, but you're going to pay a premium for them as well, so you have to add that to the cost if you want to own the original. Now the Xbox Store version is available at £6.75. That gets you access to the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One. You only have to buy it once to get access on both platforms. The Rare Replay Collection is available digitally on the Xbox Store. It is available on the physical disc. The Xbox Store price is £19.99, £20. It does go on sale regularly. You do get more than Perfect Dark though. You do get most of Rare's classic games. Obviously the Nintendo ones, you don't get like Donkey Kong Country or Goldeneye, sadly. You do get most of their other games like Banjo-Kazooie, Perfect Dark Zero, etc. So, is it worth collecting then? I mean, I would say yes it is. Yes it is. I mean, it's not really the must-buy that Goldeneye is, because Goldeneye you can really only get on the N64. It's the only way to buy it. But it's still worth owning if you're an N64 collector, or if you're going to start an N64 collection. I would recommend also getting the expansion pack anyway, if you're picking up an N64. It is worth getting if you want to play games like Donkey Kong 64, Perfect Dark, Majora's Mask, those kind of games, then you're going to need the expansion pack. So it's something else to consider there, that you do need the expansion pack. Does push the price down a little bit because expansion packs are quite not hugely difficult to find, but they are kind of expensive, and it does add to the cost of owning a Nintendo 64. Well, if Goldeneye still holds up, then Perfect Dark certainly does. Perfect Dark does make some improvements over Goldeneye. The visuals are much more detailed. They take advantage of that extra 3 megabytes of RAM that they had. The N64 only had 1 megabyte of VRAM. With the expansion pack, it now has 4 megabytes of VRAM. Although the frame rate on the original N64 does take quite a hit. It does slow to single digits in some areas of the game, especially when there are tons of enemies on screen at the one time, or if you play the game in split screen co-op. So the location based hit detection has been updated so that now you can shoot the guns out of enemies' hands. You can also disarm them by using the alt fire mode of the unarmed stance. So that was another feature that was added. All of Perfect Dark's weapons did feature an alt fire mode. Even the unarmed had a alt fire. If it would just be a punch if you did it normal. If you held, I think it was the R button on the N64, you got the alt feature, which was the disarm, which was quite fun to play. You know, it was quite fun running around disarming people. Every single weapon did feature it. Like the pistols had a pistol whip. You had like the it was the case type thing. Machine gun could be deployed as a turret. The dragon could be used as a remote mine as well. You could turn it into a remote mine so enemies would go to pick it up and it would explode. So the single player campaign did feature a pretty decent story. I mean, obviously it was a brand new franchise, okay? It had to introduce the new characters. I mean, the thing about James Bond is, you know who he is, he's James Bond, okay? Whereas with Perfect Dark, they did have to introduce you to a new cast of characters. There is Joanna Dark is the player character. I mean, I like Joanna Dark. She's basically the female James Bond. I like her sort of witty remarks, her one-liners. And she is a total badass as well. This is Joanna Dark. The enemy chatter is hilarious.
Certainly. Any other pearls of wisdom?
That crate.
Yes?
It really doesn't like being shut.
Right, now if I can just fight the urge to report him to base security.
Hilarious as well. I love their death screens. I love the way that they go from being sort of gravelly voiced badasses when they're about to try and kill you. When you kill them, they get some high pitched squeaks when they die, or they're disarmed as well. You can also hold them up as well. It's pretty cool. So Perfect Dark did feature a co-op mode which allowed 2 players to play through the game via split screen. Again, the Xbox version also has this feature. Multiplayer featured bots, so you could play it by yourself. You didn't have to have any friends. You could play it all on your lonesome. There is Xbox Live matchmaking for the Xbox version, obviously. For the multiplayer, I could never find anyone else playing, so I guess we're gonna have to make do with bots, I'm afraid. And yes, that is the facility map from Goldeneye is in the game. It's under the classic maps. Another mode you have to touch on a little bit is the counter-op modes, which, unlike co-op, puts you in the single-player campaign, but there's 2 players and you're working against each other. One of you plays as Joanna Dark, and one of you plays as one of the bad guys, and your objectives are to stop Joanna Dark from completing her mission. It was quite a novel little mode. It never really caught on. It did, you could argue it did inspire some of the PvPvE modes from some modern games. They kind of mimic it a little bit. Right, so is Perfect Dark as good as Goldeneye? Well, in many respects, it's better in a lot of ways. You know, you can tell it is the follow-up to Goldeneye. It does feature things like the same engine. The mission structure is the same. The difficulty scaling with mission objectives is still present. The humor in Perfect Dark is something I really love. I mean, the story was never meant to be taken too seriously. I mean, the alien that you meet is called Elvis. It's pretty hilarious. There are still a lot of clear Bond influences in Perfect Dark. I mean, Carrington is clearly Sean Connery.
Tell them where I'd hidden Dr. Carroll. Only I'd held out for a few minutes more.
I mean, they also play around with the Bond formula a bit. They cast the main character as female, obviously. One of the main villains in the game is female, and she has an all-female shotgun-wielding bodyguards, which, you know, adds a bit of depth and a bit of flavor to the game. I mean, it doesn't really make a huge difference, to be honest, to the gameplay, playing as a female character, to be honest. I mean, it is interesting when you wander around the Carrington Institute and if you have a disguise on and people say hello to you. I like the way the character responded, and the voice acting really does add a lot, certainly to Joanna's personality, you know, because she is quite an interesting character, I find. And I thought she was interesting. The way she'd say hello to people, the way she would sort of tell, you know, update mission objectives, etc., and say things out loud. I mean, a lot of games like Uncharted get praised for that, but, you know, Perfect Dark was doing that back in 2000, having the main character sort of self-narrate the plot, almost, of the game as well. So, which version should you buy in 2017? Now, we're always tempted to say with retro games, original's always the best. But in this case, I'd honestly recommend getting the Xbox version of the game, whether it be Xbox 360 or Xbox One. Well, you buy it digitally, you get it on both, should we say. The improvements to the frame rate make it way more playable than the N64 original, okay? You did get massive frame rate drops. I mean, it was down to single digits, and it does affect the gameplay experience. It really does affect it. So the Xbox 360 version, or we'll just call it the Xbox version. The Xbox version is decent. Okay, Perfect Dark is an example of a game that just hasn't aged well on its original hardware. Now, the 1964 emulator version is good, but it does suffer the same problem as Goldeneye in that it's too easy, because of course mouse and keyboard is a lot faster and it was never designed for mouse and keyboard. At least the Xbox version, with not tweaking the controls too much, manages to preserve the original's difficulty. It didn't change the controls too dramatically. So there we go then. The Xbox version is cheap, easy to buy, and is the best overall in terms of the frame rate, in terms of the visuals, and in terms of accessibility. So yeah, get it on Xbox. There's plenty of ways to buy it. But, you know, Perfect Dark is one of those games. It didn't sell as well as Goldeneye. I think it only sold 1.5 million copies compared to Goldeneye's 8 million copies. A lot of that was to do with the expansion pack. It was more expensive to buy because you had to buy the game. You could buy the game and the expansion cart together. At least they bundled them in together. Again, it was quite expensive, so it was more expensive than Goldeneye to buy. And of course it didn't have the license. A lot of people didn't know or maybe weren't aware. Your casual player probably wasn't aware that this was the follow-up to Goldeneye. So that contributed to sort of lack of success. Although I did find success on the Xbox at least. It was a pretty decent re-release actually. I like the fact that they got the re-release. The reason why they were allowed to re-release it was because Rare owned the IP. Okay, not Nintendo. Nintendo did publish it originally, but the Perfect Dark intellectual property was Rare's and didn't belong to, I can't remember. I think it's Sony Pictures that owns the Bond franchise right now, but I think it was MGM that owned the Bond franchise. They licensed out to EA, as we said earlier, so that's why they couldn't produce another Bond game. It does make retro games with licensed retro games are a problem, so at least Microsoft owning Rare, meaning they could use that, as well as things like Banjo-Kazooie as well, and you see a lot of that in the Rare Replay collection. So what do we take a look at next? We're going to take a break from our look at, we're taking a look at Rare / Free Radical design games is what we're going to take a look at. But we are going to take a break from that because next time we're going to take a look at Resident Evil. Because Resident Evil 7 is coming out, we are going to take a little look at the original, and we'll also take a look after that at Resident Evil 4. But then we're going to go back to, we'll go to Time Splitters next. We're going to take a look at the successor to Perfect Dark, which was released in the same year, ironically. We'll take a look at Time Splitters and that trilogy, and then we fall off a cliff in terms of quality. But anyway, that is all for this video, so thank you for joining me. We'll see you again soon, and goodbye.